We got there and I'm like, oh my god, it is time to kill these chickens. What do I do? Oh my god, these chickens don't deserve to die. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to like hold the chicken. Like, so many things were going through my head, and it was just not a fun thing to have to deal with when I have a knife in my hand and a chicken is upside down, and you have to get through it as fast as possible because it's just in front of you and it is decision time. Alright, so the very first time that we butchered out meat chickens, we didn't quite know what we were doing. We definitely did not use any of the tips that I'm going to share with you today. We have definitely learned a lot since then. I mean, it has been several times already that we've been doing this. I will play that clip for you right now. It is a little bit cringeworthy. Here it goes. It's not cutting, Alan. It's not cutting.
Use the scissors.
I can't use the scissors. It's a chicken, not a quail. I can't do it. Alan, help. Alan.
Wash your fingers on the other side.
Alan. It's not cutting.
Wash your fingers on the other side.
It's not cutting, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say.
Get a sharper knife.
We don't have a sharper knife.
Ask Mike for a sharper knife. It's not cutting. It's not. Oh, it's turning a different color. Oh, it's turning a different color, Alan. Alright, so as you can see, we did not know anything about what we were doing. We had watched a few online videos, but nothing really to prepare us for the mindset and for the, the actual information on how to go about this when it came time. So the first tip I have to share for you is to use the right knife, alright? Clearly, I did not use the right knife the first time. It did not work. The chicken did not even have a scratch on it, and it did not go well. So use the right knife. This is just a fillet knife. I think I got this from like Walmart or something. It is very sharp. Use the sharpest knife you can. If that is a Swiss Army knife or a blade or something. I think the knife that I ended up using last time was a Swift Army knife that Alan had in the truck. But since then we have been using this one. I will leave this in the description if I can find it online, or something similar off of Amazon. Or use a knife that you already have, but use a whetstone to sharpen it, right? You can use, or you can buy whetstones online, and I'll leave a picture right here so you can see what I'm talking about, but use something like that to sharpen your blade. You want the blade as sharp as humanly possible. This will save you time, it will save you headaches. Believe me, it is going to be a nightmare if you do not have a sharp blade. Alright, tip number 2 is to move the feathers out of the way, right? Obviously, chickens have tons of feathers all over their entire body, so unless you have a Transylvanian naked neck which doesn't have feathers, you're likely going to have a chicken that has a whole bunch of feathers on its neck. So what you want to do is you want to find the place in between the feathers, move the feathers back from the chicken's body, find the actual skin where you can see it is actual skin. What will happen if you try to cut through the feathers is two things. One, you won't be able to get a sharp cut, which means that it is going to take you significantly longer. It is going to be significantly more painful for the chicken and for yourself, and also it will dull your blade, making the entire process so much more of a headache. So just do yourself a favor and find where the feathers peel back or whatever it is, you don't have to remove them, but find that skin area and then cut there. Do not try to cut through feathers. Alright, so tip number 3, and I wish somebody realistically would have told me this tip when we first started, and out of all the videos I watched, I did not hear anybody mention this the entire time. So I'm giving you this tip, which would be to get your mindset right? I mean, when you decide you're going to butcher chickens, either because you have, meat chickens that you've raised to process, or because it's cheaper than, taking them to a processor just to do it yourself, or because you have animals that you need to get rid of, you have too many roosters, whatever it is, you have made a decision to butcher a chicken ahead of time. When you go to butcher a chicken the first time, that decision will be vacated from your head. Take it from me. We got there and I'm like, oh my god, it is time to kill these chickens. What do I do? Oh my god, these chickens don't deserve to die. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to like hold the chicken. Like, so many things were going through my head, and it was just not a fun thing to have to deal with when I have a knife in my hand and the chicken is upside down, and you have to get through it as fast as possible because it's just in front of you and it is decision time. You have made the decision to butcher out chicken to provide meat for your family, to get rid of animals that do not need to be in your flock, whatever it is. Do not overthink that decision when you have a knife in your hand. just don't. You've made a decision. Even if the thoughts come into your head, clear them out. Whatever you have to do, don't overthink it. Which brings me to the next tip, which is to be as quick as possible, right? If you are delaying this process any longer than it needs to be, you are just adding on time for yourself to overthink this, to, psych yourself out, to get inside your head. And plus, if you are just being, you're being mean to the chicken, try to do it as humanely as possible. Be quick. Why you would want a very sharp knife, so you're not doing multiple cuts over and over again, delaying the process. Be as quick as possible, be as humane as possible, and don't give yourself time to overthink it at all. All right, so now for a more technical tip, which is to get the right size killing cone. This is I think it's a large killing cone. I want to say I got this on Amazon. I will leave the link in the description to this one or to something very similar. This is a large one. It works for normal sized chickens. It works for, I think, small turkeys, something like that. So it'll give you a description of like what kind of animal. Oh, and it works for ducks as well, because in the future we do want to get ducks. So it works for a variety of things. It has two little nail screw holes, and we just attach this to a tree, and it has a hole at the bottom which allows the chicken's neck to come through. Make sure you get the right size of this, because you don't want a chicken worming its way out of it. That will not go well if you're having to chase a chicken that is like half processed or half dead across the yard. It's not going to be a fun experience, believe me. And if you have one that's too small, the chicken's head won't come through enough so that you can actually butcher it. So make sure you get the right size. I have a large one, and this one seems to work fairly well. All right, so next up is have all of your equipment ahead of time, right? I have my killing cone, I have my knife, we have all of our equipment, the boiler, everything set up at the house so that we are ready to go. The last thing you want is to have an animal dead, just kind of like laying out there waiting for you to set up the equipment. It just makes it so much easier if you have everything ready to go and set up ahead of time. If you don't know what it is you need, all the equipment you need, I will leave a list below in the show notes, so check that out if you're not sure of what it is you need to actually process a chicken. But just make sure you have everything. Usually what I do is I take a list ahead of time, everything we need. We need the cooler with ice, we need the knife, we need the killing cone, we need all of this stuff, and then review it the day of or before you leave or whatever. Just make sure you have everything in the car, or out in the backyard. We don't live on this property, so we have to actually physically drive to this property, but you don't want to have to get all the way out there to the barn or whatever it is you're going. Just make sure you have everything and then head out to do this. All right, so tip number 7 is to decide ahead of time whether or not you are going to leave the chicken whole or if you're going to butcher it into pieces. It'll just be significantly easier for you to store it and to save it, and the process will go overall faster. Usually what I do is I will do about half the chickens whole so that we can put them in the fryer or directly in the oven or whatever it is, and then we butcher and actually quarter the chicken. About half of those get quartered, and that way we can actually use drumsticks and everything else, and we don't have to do it every single time. Doing it in bulk is much easier than defrosting the chicken and then cutting it up and all of that stuff. It will also dictate how it is that you save and store the chicken. So decide ahead of time. It just makes the process overall easier, and there's less steps involved. If you're doing it, you don't have to figure it out as you go. All right, so this next one, not necessarily when it came to chickens we learned this the hard way, although it does very much apply to chickens as well. But the first time butchering our quail, we had to learn this the hard way, which is to leave the animal resting for at least 48 hours. After you butcher it out. What happens directly after an animal dies is its body will go into rigor mortis, just like people, and so the muscles will be very, very stiff. The very first time that we butchered quail, I did not know this, and so we ate the quail, I think it was 4 or 5 hours later, which meant that its body was very, very hard. And the body was just very stiff, and I cooked it, and we were like, oh my god, I definitely thought it would be a lot softer, for homegrown meat and all of that stuff, and that is not the case. You have to let the body sit and rest. I think usually it's around 48 hours. I leave mine for 48 hours or so. In that time you can brine it or just put it in the fridge. Make sure that it is in a cool place, like the refrigerator, and just leave it in place so that the body can rest. Once you can actually take the limbs and kind of move them around without them being stiff, that means that rigor mortis has vacated the body, and then you won't have a problem cooking it or freezing it or whatever you want to do with it. All right, so this is something that usually it's a pretty common thing. However, it's not something that I thought of when we first decided to butcher out chicken, so So I would venture to say that if you are from the city or the suburbs like me, this is probably not something that you anticipated, which is to not wear anything that you don't want to get dirty. I am just wearing like a plain t-shirt and some jeans, you know, some old jeans and just whatever shoes. Don't have your hair all nice and clean, you know, don't put on makeup. Don't worry about doing any of the like getting ready prep stuff. Just, you won't need it, all right? You are going to get chicken blood all over you. Your clothes will smell. And yeah, you can get the stains out, but I don't know. I don't like wearing that shirt anymore that I wore the first time. I don't want to wear that shirt out anymore. So don't wear anything that you don't want to get chicken blood all over, because you will for sure. Because you will for sure get chicken blood all over you. So make sure that whatever it is you're wearing, your hair is tied back, you know, you're wearing something like scruffy, you don't mind getting it dirty, whatever it is, do not dress up. Just put your hair back and be done with it. And the next tip is to have something else prepared for dinner that night besides chicken. All right, I have heard this from a lot of people that I know that butcher out their own chickens. No matter how many times you butcher out chickens, there is a smell to butchering out chickens, and it is all over you, and it's just not a pleasant thing to do. And then to go home and sit down and eat chicken, it's just not something that I do, and it's not something that I've heard a lot of people, you know, do the same thing. They will prepare something else, you know, have pork, have sausage. Tonight we're having pasta and pork sausage with Alfredo sauce. Just make sure whatever it is you're cooking that night is not chicken, because after having butchered out chicken, even if you're just doing one chicken, there's a smell, there's like the skin, it's not a fun process. So just try to have something else prepared if you are having dinner after that. And if this is your first time butchering chicken, or your second time, or whatever it is, if this is not something that you are used to, try to butcher and process your chicken that, you know, it is not the middle of the day. The very first time we did this, we started at about 11 a.m. We thought it was going to take, I don't know, an hour or two maybe. It did not take an hour or two, believe me. It took a very long time. We were here forever and we were suffocating, and it was just sweating, and then that sweat smell mixed with the heat, mixed with the chicken skin smell and the blood, it was just a nightmare. So just try to do it either like later in the afternoon like it is now, it's nice and cool out here, or very first thing early in the morning. It will likely take you a lot more time than you anticipate if it's your first time or two. So just try to make sure you give yourself enough time so that it's not like the peak of noon and it's not, you know, 80 or 90 degrees outside. It's just not a pleasant experience. So make sure you are, you know, doing this where it's a little bit cooler and you won't have to worry about that. Alright guys, so those are my best tips on how to butcher a chicken if you've never done it before. I do have an entire video on the exact steps that I take to butcher out chickens. I will leave it out here somewhere on top or in the description or something, so be sure to check that one out. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.